Their new book. How does all of this impact the Trump presidency? Joining us is NBC News political analyst Hugh Hewitt, also the host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on MSNBC. Hugh, it's great to talk to you. First of all, on Syria, as we wait for possible strikes, they were threatened over Twitter. What's driving the decisions now from the Oval Office?
Well, I think I watched more of a Security Council meeting at the UN today, Contessa, more of it than I have since before the Gulf War, the Iraq War. There were some very blunt things said today at the UN. The French ambassador to the UN said the regime's end is near. They're at the point of no return. France will carry its burden. Nikki Haley was very direct. I think that the combination of President Trump, Prime Minister May, and President Macron of France are much more resolute about bringing about regime change or regime evolution immediately than were President Obama, Prime Minister Cameron, and President Hollande in 2013. And the armada that is amassing close to Syria is large and growing. The Truman carrier and its carrier group dispatched a few days ago. I am thinking that we're missing the biggest story here, which is that we're close to major action against a country with WMD that Iran is in, that Russia is in, that's close to Israel, that's close to our troops in the north. It looks to me like a very serious situation, and I don't know that we won't be talking about it for weeks to come, as opposed to the Comey book.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to get to next. But, you know, the market was this morning being lower on the expectation that perhaps we are going to see some kind of strike imminently. And in fact, a lot of people saying, why go into the weekend long or short or anything when there's potentially something really big coming that could really drive the markets. What's your take of the Comey book? If I could opine, it seems like it's a poor man's version of Fire and Fury. Lots of stuff we kind of already knew, maybe more details we didn't know. But do you see any big bombshells in here? Anything that is so detrimental to the president that he's at risk?
There are no bombshells. Now, I got to say, I've been reading this book, Andy Posner's new book, and I'm sure he'll be on to talk with you about capitalist comeback. But I've been reading the excerpts of the Comey book, and I'm going to wait until I read the whole thing to characterize it. But if there were any bombshells, they didn't make much noise. They clearly don't like each other. When
Shocking.
George Stephanopoulos of ABC sat down with him and asked him, did the president have a right to know that the Steele dossier was paid for by his political opponents, the former FBI director said, I don't know, I can't answer that. I think that's going to really sink in over a period of time as to people thinking that wasn't particularly fair on the part of the director. But it's going to end up confirming everyone's already held opinion. And therefore, I don't think it's going to move the needle. Mr. Mueller's going to move the needle. Mr. Rosenstein's going to move the needle. The Cohen sweep, the Cohen raid is going to move the needle. I don't think James Comey is, and it may not, in fact, help him too much. But I also think it's a short story.
I want to come back to the what I think is a far more serious issue, and that is Syria. If you read between the lines of some of Secretary Mattis's testimony, he seems to be taking a much more cautious stance, as I guess is prudent for the head of the military, than some on the more political side of things. The difference here, if there is a move toward regime change, as opposed to what was the case in Iraq, the difference here is that you have a nuclear power allied with the regime we want to change, and a would-be nuclear power in Iran similarly allied. This seems to me to have the potential to develop into, if not a major conflict regionally, something maybe even more than that.
Tyler, I think you're right, and I hope we're not playing your tape predicting that a week from now. We've heard the term deconfliction a lot, but in fact, when you have Iran, Russia, Israel, Hezbollah, the United States, and Turkey all jammed up against each other, and we expect a bunch of cruise missiles and jet fighters to strike, and we expect cyber attacks on Syria to disable the S-400 system that the Russians have placed around strategic Syrian sites. Many miscalculations at issue here. And I should point out, Israel struck Syria in a very controversial move earlier this week. So this prospect of a direct Iranian-Israel confrontation on the desert that we call Syria like the Romans used to say, they made a desert and they called it peace. It's a terrible place. It's hell right now. But it's going to be I think it's like the Cuban Missile Crisis kind of thing. But there's so much news that we're not paying much attention.
Hugh, well, and on that note, I'm going to go to something that's going to be more salacious. We're already seeing fallout from the raid on Cohen's office, and the Journal's reporting that he negotiated a $1.6 million settlement with a former Playboy model on behalf of a Republican fundraiser, which highlights what everybody realized when they did this raid. They're going in looking for A, but this lawyer's got a lot of paperwork. They're going to find all kinds of stuff in there. How much impeachment risk does the president face as a result of this?
Well, I think the Democrats will certainly impeach him if they take the House in November. That's a given. But they won't convict him because the Senate isn't going to. He only needs 34 votes down. So I don't even think the president cares about that. I do think the attorney-client breach authorized by Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein is a very significant issue for lawyers. I'm a lawyer. I don't know but one lawyer in 35 years of practice who's had their papers seized, and they got them right back because it's so rare to do this. And I would like to know, where are those papers? Who's got control of them? Who is reviewing them? The taint team gives me no confidence whatsoever. And Michael Cohen worked for a lot of high-profile people, including the president. And I am very, very concerned about the precedent that was set here with the breach of the Cohen papers, and I believe it's not playing well with the public.
Hugh, thanks so much.